Hello and welcome to the BA Sports Podcast. Today makes podcast number 6, and we are happy to be a part of the BA Network. Today we are recording on Friday, August 12th, 2016. I'm your host, Adam, and I have Ty holding it down with me as always. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of athletes that are the best to ever do it in their particular sport and our thoughts on their legacies. We will tell you how we will fix baseball, and before we talk about the Browns' new starting quarterback, then we will touch on LeBron and his new contract. After all that, the real fun starts as we get to know Ty through the Q&A segment. So let's get started. How are we doing today, Ty?
Not too bad. Definitely a pretty interesting week in sports with some couple retirements like you mentioned. We got the NFL season starting up here soon. Olympics obviously going on. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. But first, what we're going to get started with is former Buckeye Mr. Joey Bosa has yet to sign his rookie contract.
Yeah, how caught up are you on this situation? I've looked up quite a bit from it, and I can tell you from my perspective, usually when it's the holdout, it's always the player's fault.
Right.
In this situation, is 100% the Chargers organization fault.
You blaming the Chargers for this one?
Yeah, they are definitely to blame in here, and I'm on Joey Bosa's side. How about you?
I can see it going both ways. The issue is that Bosa and his signing bonus, it's a $17 million signing bonus, I believe, and the Chargers want to give him, defer half of it to the second year, and Bosa's pretty much wanting it all up front. Most franchises will give it to you all up front. Chargers have their way of doing things, and it's a little bit different from everybody else to where they defer it over 2 payments.
So that's part of the situation. The other part of the situation is, so Joey Bosa wants either his signing bonus all at once, or he also wants to be able to, if he gets cut by the Chargers, he wants to be able to still collect those payments instead of those payments being deferred to the other team that picks him up.
Okay.
Which every third overall pick for the past decade has gotten both of those.
Right.
They've gotten their signing bonus in full and this, they're being able to get paid twice if they happen to get cut in the next few years or during his first contract.
Right.
So Bosa wants one of those. He doesn't care which one. The Chargers refuse to give him either.
Yeah, and so like I said, I can see it going both ways. Chargers have their way of doing things, and that's the way they've always done it. They don't want to make an exception because once they do make that exception for him, then down the line, everybody's going to want it to be that way. So they got to stand strong on their ground, but definitely if I was in Joey Bosa's shoes, I would be doing the same thing he's doing.
No, and I don't see this getting resolved soon. I think the Chargers are one of the worst-run organizations in sports. They're up there with maybe our Cleveland Browns and the Sacramento Kings as some of the worst run. I don't see this getting resolved soon.
I don't either.
I could see Bosa not playing halfway through the season. I could also see Bosa declaring for the draft next year. I could see him going back in.
And is that how I'm not 100% sure, but is that how that works to where if he doesn't play all year, he does get to re-enter
so if he doesn't
the
get
draft?
signed, he'll go back into the draft next year, and any team can draft him except the Chargers again.
That's pretty cool.
So, but then he loses a year of his prime, or not really his prime yet, but a year of getting better at football.
Right.
He gets out of football shape. So it's definitely a complicated situation.
Yeah, very interesting. It's going to be interesting to follow that and see how it works out. I mean, Bosa, obviously being a Buckeye fan like I am, and I know you are,
right.
He's one of the players I was excited to see in the NFL and see how his skill translates. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Right, yep. So we'll try to keep you guys up to date with those developments as they come forth throughout the season and so on and so forth.
All right, but right now we're going to go ahead and move on to Michael Phelps and the work he's been putting in, not over just this Olympics in Rio, but what he's done over his career.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah, he's added 4 more gold medals to his collection. He's up to 22.
Wow.
I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about it other than he's definitely the greatest Olympian we've seen in our lifetime. Would you say he's the greatest ever?
I mean, at least for the modern Olympics, sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe back in the 12-player BCs, there's some really good gladiator out there that was amazing and couldn't be beat. But I think in the modern time frame, he's definitely has to be considered one of the best.
I know a lot of other people are saying that gymnast Simone Biles, who is actually from here in Ohio. I think she was born in Columbus.
Okay.
A lot of people are starting to put her in the conversation, even though I think this is her first Olympics. She's been definitely tearing up the gymnastics world the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. She wasn't in the last Olympics, but I know she's won the previous 3 world championships, and then she's been dominating this Olympics so far. So would you say, what is the more athletic sport, gymnastics or swimming?
It's comparing apples to oranges, I think. I think you can't really compare the two. If I had to rank the two Olympians, I think you got to give it to Phelps just for his longevity.
Absolutely.
Just for competing since he was 15 years old. He's been competing for 16 years now as an Olympian. That's amazing. While Biles is obviously up there for a great athlete and stuff, I think she's definitely not in that conversation yet. I wouldn't put her there. And then between the two sports, it's hard to compare. They're completely different sports.
It is. I mean, with gymnastics, the way you got to twist and turn your body, and the training regimens are so much different, obviously. And then Michael Phelps, the only knack you could really ever put on Michael Phelps, and this is really like you got to be searching for it, but he only participates in like nothing more than 200 meters.
Right.
And there is swimming events out there to where it's like 1,500 meters and all that, and Phelps doesn't, but I mean, that's, like I said, you really got to reach to...
Why doesn't Usain Bolt run marathons?
Right, yeah.
Like, he's obviously a sprinter, and maybe that's more what Michael Phelps is. So, again, hard to compare the two sports.
But definitely awesome time to, we really need to appreciate watching Michael Phelps and these 22 gold medals, because we're going to be telling our grandkids about him, when we're 50, 60, 70 years old. So it's something that we need to appreciate.
Right, yep, for sure. Moving on from there, we got another legacy player.
Right.
This one's also retiring. We got Alex Rodriguez of the New York Yankees announced his retirement. He's retiring today, Friday.
Yep, today's his very last day. His very last game in the MLB. He's going to be moving into an advisory role with the Yankees, where he will continue to collect what's left of his $240 million paycheck.
That's got to be pretty nice.
Or contract, yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously something he worked out with the organization. The Yankees are definitely on a youth movement.
Right.
Not saying that they're tanking or anything.
But we saw it with all those trades. Gathering all the prospects,
You got rid of the Andrew Miller and all them, and, bringing in the young prospects. And A-Rod being 42 years old or whatever he is definitely, not part of that youth movement. So they moved him to an advisory role. But A-Rod and his legacy is it's unique.
Very unique.
Because he's definitely had his problems, whether it be ego or the PEDs and all that stuff. But what he has accomplished on the field, I mean,
it's amazing.
696 home runs, that's fourth all time. 2,084 or 85 RBIs now, because he just got one the other night. 3,114 hits, which is 19th all time. And that's legendary numbers, but obviously with the PEDs, it's a little bit tarnished. As someone that's not a baseball guy, what is your thoughts on Alex Rodriguez?
Like you said, I'm not a baseball guy. I don't watch the sport often. If I do, it's for these marquee matchups where I see, I know Alex Rodriguez, I know that name, I'll watch this game and see how he does. I've definitely known about the PEDs and that whole scandal that he had. To me, it doesn't tarnish it that much.
No?
No, I mean, I guess it should. I guess looking at some of the other players that have been tarnished, such as the Barry Bonds, where their legacies are obviously ruined now. Roger Clemens, yep. So, he's a great player. I think he was great before the PEDs, and I think it's unfortunate that he actually used them, because I think he would have been fine without them. I think he's one of those athletic freaks and one of those all-time greats that would have been fine without the PEDs, in my personal opinion. You think it's just a sign of the times, like that's what everybody was doing, so he did it too kind of deal? Or I would imagine it's something like that. In honesty, I would imagine just to keep up with around the league that you almost have to for some of these players.
Yep. Some other noticeable stats from A-Rod in his career. He scored 2,021 runs, which ranks 8th all-time. He's 29th all-time in doubles with 547, which is more than former Yankee Derek Jeter, who had 544 and ranks 31st all-time. And then he's 25th in games played. He's at 2,781 with the game tonight. He should be at 82. So, I mean, a lot of people believe that A-Rod will actually find his way onto another roster after this year.
Really?
They think that this is just a way for the Yankees to get him off of their team. And then he's eventually going to be on another roster by the end of next year.
Can he come onto another roster next year? I know in some sports you have to be retired for a full year before you're allowed to compete in the sport again. Will he be allowed to?
I guess I don't really know the intricacies of that. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know if they'll just full out release him if he decides he wants to play again.
Okay.
But So regardless on if this is his last game or not, at this point, do you think that A-Rod will be a Hall of Famer with his PED past?
I think he should be, but I don't think he will be. One thing I do know about baseball is they're very
traditional.
Very traditional. They keep their traditions. They don't like the cheaters. I mean, obviously we see Pete Rose not getting in the Hall for the gambling and all that stuff. So, among other issues for Pete Rose.
Yeah.
But so I don't think they'll elect him into the Hall of Fame. Personally, I think he should be. He's one of the all-time greats, even with the PEDs.
Right.
So that's my personal opinion. How about you?
I'm with you. I think I'm okay with the asterisk beside his name when you look through the record books and all that stuff. But it is a sign of it is just what was going on in the game of baseball. I don't think that. I mean, steroids help, but I don't think that his numbers would be all that different, like you said, if he didn't use them. He would have been a Hall of Famer with or without them.
Yep.
And with it just being the steroid era of baseball, I think that you almost bypass it, unfortunately.
Right.
But I do believe that he belongs into the Hall of Fame.
All right. Another retirement in baseball. Prince Fielder.
Yep. Prince Fielder announced that he's going to be hanging up his cleats due to a neck injury. That's his most recent anyway. He has 2 herniated discs in his neck. He's going to be undergoing a second surgery. Prince first made a name for himself just by being the son of former MLB player Cecil Fielder, who, on a side note, I did not know this, played his last 14 Major League Baseball games as a Cleveland Indian before retiring. Prince came up from the Milwaukee Brewers, made an immediate impact with that team. From there, he went to play for the Detroit Tigers, and so I hated him. And then he made his way onto the Texas Rangers roster so I could root for Prince Fielder again. But he had a pretty good MLB career. It's unfortunate that the injury stopped him. He certainly looked like he may have been on his way to the Hall of Fame. Another little fun fact about Prince, him and his dad Cecil both will end up with 319 home runs.
That's kind of a cool thing to share with your dad.
Right. So 319 home runs for both father and son.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pretty neat.
Yep. So those were the 2 big retirements this week. Moving on from there, we got some football news. We got some preseason action coming up this week. We got the Browns playing tonight, which we are definitely interested in.
Absolutely.
Along with all the other games. So what are you looking for in this first Browns preseason game?
Definitely the first thing I'm going to be watching is our quarterback. Hugh Jackson just named
RG3.
RG3. Wow, brain fart. He just named RG3 the starting quarterback, and so he's definitely what I'm going to be watching tonight. I want to see how he does with an actual pass rush because we watched him down there at the Orange and Brown scrimmage, and he looked really comfortable back there.
He really did.
And so I want to see if that translates to where he might actually get hit. I want to see if he's over that fear of his knee injuries.
Right.
So that's definitely the main thing I'll be watching tonight.
Yeah, we also put a poll out on Twitter earlier today. Some of the other options were Terrell Pryor,
Hollywood Higgins, and then we just had others.
Yeah,
we wanted you to comment.
We actually had a reply saying they were looking most forward to the defense, which I also agree with.
Yeah, I'm with you there. With our defense last year, tackling was a big issue.
Yeah.
Like I said before in previous podcasts, I think just having Jim O'Neal gone is going to be a huge improvement to our defense.
Back in will definitely help.
Yeah, I don't think tackling is going to be nearly the issue that it was last year, but I want to see how aggressive we are. I know it's only preseason, but I want to see the pass rush with Kruger and Orchard and all of them, and I want to see Emmanuel Ogbah, see what he's made of. Defense is going to be fun to watch.
How are you going to be looking at Justin Gilbert at all?
Oh, I'll definitely be watching him. Hopefully what we saw at the Orange and Brown scrimmage and a lot of things I've been seeing on Twitter about him getting torched is not going to be the case tonight. Hopefully, he will show up on game day and just not a practice player or something.
Yeah, hopefully. So some other things. Like we said, football starting up. There's some other things coming up in the fall. You want to go over those?
Yeah, we'll go back a little bit to our baseball topics here. With the fall starting up, there's football and then there's meaningful baseball.
Right. Coming into a playoff push and all that, yeah.
If you've been listening to our podcast, Ty's not a big baseball person. I consider myself, I'm kind of middle of the road, to where I follow the tribe and I kind of keep an eye on everything else around the league, but I'm not completely up to date on everything. I love baseball. I've been playing it since I was 5. But there's been a topic recently the last couple of years about baseball and how it's losing its younger audience.
Right.
And how it's just boring. And they've been trying to fix it. And again, I wanted your opinion on, as someone that's not a big baseball fan, like what could they do to get you more interested in watching the game?
I mean, there's not much. If they don't want to change some of the major aspects of the sports, there's not much. I mean, to me, the game's just so slow, and who knows why that is. I mean, obviously some of the older generations are fine with that, but maybe it's just from us being on our phone and having everything at our fingertips whenever we want
Right.
it. We need stuff fast-paced. So I think that definitely is bothering me. Another thing is, if they could somehow translate the baseball park experience into at home, that would be amazing. I mean, going to Indians games is a blast. Going to baseball games is a blast.
Right.
But if they could translate that ballpark experience into the home a little bit more, that'd be nice. But I don't know how you would go about doing that.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't really know how you could do that. I think one thing that MLB, and it's one of the more popular opinions from what I've heard, one thing MLB needs to utilize more is the players. I mean, baseball is one of the sports where you see their face all the time. So they need to get that out there, get the young players like the Bryce Harpers, get the Francisco Lindors and all of them, and they need to be more of a household name.
See, I don't know that many. I know Mike Trout, you got Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburger. Those are just some of the names. Like, I'm still back where Albert Pujols was the best player and stuff like that. And obviously that isn't the case anymore.
So MLB definitely, I think one thing that would help them as organization, I guess you would call it, is to definitely market their young stars and get them out there more. Because right now in baseball, we're definitely seeing a youth movement. Like I said, with the Francisco Lindors, if you look at all the main shortstops in the game right now, most of them are under 25 years old, and baseball needs to take advantage of that. So I think that's one thing that they definitely need to do to fix baseball. And that's something I thought about the other day. I was like, I really don't have the answer, and not very many people do, because obviously if there was an answer, they would have done it already. But I wanted to see someone that's not really into the game as much to see what their thoughts would be. So that's why I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, it's a definitely tough subject to do.
Right.
I mean, it's not any one answer. Definitely going to have to take a lot of steps to get that more into the mainstream. And I don't think they can overtake baseball or football or basketball again. No. But maybe cement themselves as that third league.
Right. And not get passed by hockey. And, soccer's making a quick rise in this country as well.
I mean, I know I'd rather watch soccer than baseball at this point.
Really?
In my personal opinion.
Wow.
Yeah, I have more fun watching it. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. Just the experience is better for me.
Yep. And that's crazy to me, but I mean that's just the way it's going.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll move on now. We got some big news here in the land.
Yep.
Our king has returned.
Yep.
Signed a 3-year, $100 million contract Thursday. He's going to be getting an average of $33.3 million a year, making him the highest paid player in the league finally for the first time in his career.
Is insane to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously he took those pay cuts in Miami. But for the first time in his career, he's going to be the highest paid player. That's absolutely mind-boggling that he's been the best player in the league for almost a decade now, it seems like.
Yeah. At least he's been in the conversation regardless.
Right.
I mean, everybody's got their opinions of who's the best, but you can't deny that LeBron has not been top 3 at least for the past 10 years.
Right. So that blows my mind. Also on this 3-year deal, he has a player option on the 3rd year, which seems to be a very common factor in a lot of these players' deals, which he'll probably opt out of and sign for another humongous contract. Because in 2 years, I think he'll still be LeBron, and Dan Gilbert's going to give him a legacy contract for bringing his championship to Cleveland.
Absolutely. So. I was surprised initially, knowing how that the cap is expected to jump again next year, that LeBron wouldn't do a 2-year with the player option being the 2nd year and then taking advantage of that salary cap and getting the bigger.
That was also surprising to me.
But one thing that kind of sticks out to me, you see that it's that 2-year deal with that player option for the 3rd. D Wade's got a 2-year contract in Chicago. I mean, they always talk about how they would like to get the 4 of them with CP3 and Carmelo and get them towards the end of their career.
That's an interesting wrinkle. I didn't even think of that.
Right. So, I mean, who knows? It's probably nothing, but it's just, us Cleveland fans are always looking for something.
Yep, could be something, though. So, one of the interesting fun facts I saw about this contract is per day, LeBron's going to make over $90,000 a day.
A day? Oh, my
day.
Gosh. People would kill to have that for an average salary for a year.
Right, and he's going to make $90,000 a day. That's without endorsements. That's without tons of other factors. That's just his playing contract, which, I mean, great for him. He deserves every penny of it. Yeah. He really does.
I agree.
I see a lot of people always bash players for getting this much money, but, I mean, it's a skill, and they earned it.
Absolutely.
So I don't have any problem with that.
Especially when it's someone like LeBron, which he's recently I've been seeing a lot of this, which is kind of old news around here in Cleveland, Akron area. But his I Promise program and how he has dedicated $41 million to putting the youth through college. Yeah. So when he's taking that money that he's getting and putting it back into the community, why not give him
it's not like he's going out and blowing it on 150 cars.
Right.
Or anything extra, which I'm sure he does have quite a few cars. But he's also, like you said, putting it back into the community, helping people less fortunate than him. So it's a great thing. And I don't know. I'm glad to have him back.
There needs to be more LeBrons with, more LeBron-type people with that kind of money.
For sure. So moving on from there, LeBron's teammate and former teammate faced off in the Olympics. Mr. Kyrie Irving versus Matthew Dellavedova.
Right.
So the Team USA versus Australia was definitely a very good test for Team USA. Australia came out swinging, and they hit us hard. I mean, Australia was the first team that had any NBA players on it that we faced, and they had every single one of their starters was in the NBA.
Okay.
So they have that experience, they have that skill. Plus, they've been playing together for ages. They all know each other. They've grown up together in the Australian League, and they've been great in the Olympics so far. They've only lost one game, which was to us. And, yeah, I could definitely see this being a rematch for the gold medal game.
Yeah.
I could see Australia coming through. I could see Croatia coming through are two of my favorites to make that gold medal game versus the United States. But it was
definitely a wake-up call for Team USA,
big wake-up call. Yep. I think Kyrie definitely showed why he's Coach K's guy to go to.
Right.
Why he's the starter instead of some of these other players. He looked cool, calm, and collected in the fourth quarter. Looked great.
I mean, when you compare Game 7 fourth quarter to an Olympic game fourth quarter, it's probably nothing for Kyrie.
Right, exactly. And then it also shows why Melo's the man on this team. He 30-plus points. He looked amazing. He's unstoppable in international play. I mean, he's the greatest international player of all time, in my opinion, just with the shortened court, the shortened minutes, him playing the small ball four. And
the experience that he's got in it, too. So, I mean, he's been there, done it.
He's looked amazing. It'll be definitely interesting to see how we bounce back. Our defense definitely looked very suspect this last game. We're playing again tonight versus Serbia, I believe. So,
I believe it's the first time Team USA and Serbia has ever matched up.
Okay. So, probably going to be another win. I mean, most definitely will be. Right. I don't want to jinx us or anything like that, but hopefully this Australia game definitely woke us up and will prepare us for the later rounds of the tournament when we have to face the Spains and the Croatias and the Australias and the France and the Argentinas and so on and so forth when we play those top-tier teams.
I got a little side note here that I seen the other day, and it's about Kyrie Irving. And he, I guess, had difficulties deciding which country he was going to represent for this Olympics.
Really?
Yeah, he was going back and forth between, because he's been quoted as saying he's an Australian at heart since he was born there, but even though he spent a majority of his life here in the USA.
When he was 2. Yep.
Kyrie was going back and forth trying to decide which country to represent, and it came down to Coach K being the coach is what had him choose USA over Australia.
I could see that.
And you're sitting there talking about the game and how close it was, and it had me thinking, like, imagine if Kyrie was on that Australia team.
Yeah,
like,
what go-to guy.
Right, what would happen then?
Yeah. Speaking of fun facts, Kyrie has now played more games for Coach K in the international scene than he did at Duke.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Kyrie's had Coach K as a coach of it for his international career more than Duke now. So
right.
It's been pretty crazy.
Had that injury his freshman year at Duke. I think
he played 11 games. Yep.
Yeah. And so, before he entered the draft, and Cavs took him with the number 1 overall pick, thankfully.
Correct.
All right, well, now we're going to move on to what is now my new favorite segment so far.
Mine too. Like this.
Yeah, we got our question and answer segment last week. If you listened, Ty asked me 5 questions about my personal and, my sports fandom experiences. And it was a lot of fun. He asked really great questions, so I kind of copied most of them because I thought it'd be really interesting so you can kind of get to know Ty about, like you got to know me a little bit last week. I mixed it up a little bit, but I pretty much kept it the same.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into that first question. Who's your favorite athlete of all time?
Ooh,
any sport,
favorite athlete. That's tough. I mean, I'm probably going to have to go with a Cleveland guy.
Okay.
Just because Cleveland guys are my dudes.
Right.
So, Joe Hayden's up there, Kyrie Irving's up there, and Josh Cribb's up there. It's one of those 3. I think I'm going to have to go.
Not even LeBron?
No.
Wow.
I'm honestly not a big LeBron fan,
if
to be honest. So, that might come into play later if you have another question about that. Or if not, I can explain now. But I think I'm going to have to go Kyrie Irving. Just a flash is fun to watch. He's just a great player to watch. I mean, he's obviously had some locker room issues in the past with Dion, and his injury history is kind of a bummer. But, yeah.
Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's your dude?
Kyrie Irving, yeah.
All right.
He's got to be my number 1. Yep, for sure.
All right, and then our next one, we'll go into the next one. And I guess that you kind of answered it. I say favorite Cleveland athlete of the past 10 years.
Yeah, it's got to be Kyrie.
So
got to be Kyrie, yep. Knock out 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. All right, so then we'll just move on to the next one.
Okay.
We'll go, what is your biggest pet peeve in sports? It could be athletes, fans, owners, traditions, whatever. Just what just drives you crazy that you see?
This is a good question. What's my biggest pet peeve in all sports?
Just so everyone knows, Ty didn't know these questions before, so I'm putting him on the spot here, so he's going to kind of think it through.
What comes to mind right away is the end of basketball games, the timeout, the fouling, the hack-a-shack
rule.
Yeah, how the last minute of a basketball game can last
15 minutes.
15 minutes, half an hour. It seems like sometimes that's got to be my biggest pet peeve. Is that another one I can think of is how some fans take the game way too seriously. I'm not sure if that's really a pet peeve or just something I don't like. Some fans get really into the game, and we have to remember it's a game.
Right.
Like some people, their whole lives revolve around this one sport, and it can get pretty intense sometimes. So that's another thing that bothers me.
All right. And then the next one, these are going to be some of the ones that you asked me last week, but your favorite professional sports moment, obviously excluding the championship in Cleveland.
All right. So this was a tough one. I think my favorite professional one was me and my dad went to a Cleveland Browns football game. It was against the Bengals. I forget when it was. I want to say it was 2005, 2006, somewhere around there that year. And we went up there with him and some of his work buddies. And we had pretty good seats. And my favorite player at the time was a safety, number 27, Brian Russell.
I remember him.
Yeah. One of my all-time favorite athletes. He's up there with some of the other greats in Cleveland, in my opinion. Just
I don't even know if you could consider him a great in Cleveland.
No, he's a great. Loved him in Madden. I absolutely loved Brian Russell. He was one of my all-time favorite players. Like I almost mentioned him earlier with the Josh Cribbs, Joe Hayden, Kyrie Irving. But yeah, so we go to this game, and the whole time I'm watching Brian Russell, just watching him play safety and run around, and then I forget who. I think it must have been Carson Palmer at the time, throwing a deep route to, I want to say Hushmanzada. I'm not 100% sure though, just because I was pretty young. I was like 4th, 5th grade.
Right.
But so Carson Palmer throws this ball, and Brian Russell picks it off.
Ooh.
And I went absolutely crazy. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. Brian Russell, my favorite player, came and picked off a division quarterback, and then I remember watching him try to run it back, and he didn't do a good job running it back. I don't think he got a lot of interceptions, so he definitely looked a little rough.
Didn't know what to do.
On the return, I think we ended up losing 5 yards or something on the return, but that's definitely up there for one of my favorite professional sports memories, yeah.
All right. And then we'll go to personal sports memory. What's one of your favorites?
So I've been thinking about this, and I think it comes down to like you, I played football in middle school.
Okay.
I didn't really get out of freshman year just because I was such a tiny person. Like I'm still a pretty small guy now, obviously, but if you know me, I'm a pretty small guy. But back then, I was the smallest kid on the team, easily.
All
so
right.
it's 7th grade, and we're 5 or 6 games in the season, I want to say, and I'd never played at all. I'd never gotten in the game. I don't think I'd been in the game once at all year. And then, so I'm sitting there, and we're getting absolutely demolished. It's like 30-0 or something like that. Just terrible. And then all of a sudden my coach looks at me. He's like, Ty, come here. And I'm like, oh, this is my time. Like, I'm going to go play safety, which I love playing safety. I love playing cornerback.
Because you want to be Brian Russell, right?
Yeah. I want to be my dude, Brian Russell. But he looks at me and says, all right, you're in at defensive tackle.
What?
So here I am, the shortest kid on the team, the skinniest kid on the team. Coach throws me in there at defensive tackle. So to this day, I don't know if it was some kind of sick joke where he just thought it'd be funny to send me into the defensive line and try to do something. So I jog out there, and I told the defensive tackle to get on the sideline. He's like, "For real?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then everyone kind of looks at me, and they're like, "Really? Why are you out here?" I was like, "I don't know, guys."
The coach told me to.
Coach told me to come out here, so I'm going to come out here. So I had never played defensive line. I don't know any techniques for defensive line. So we break our huddle, and I sit down right in front of the center. I remember looking at this kid in his eyes. And then they hike the ball. I pull out a swim move and get the QB fumble the snap. And I got a fumble recovery on my first snap. And it was the most exciting thing. Like, I dove on the ground, I got it. And all of a sudden, everyone's cheering. All my teammates are, like, hyping me up. And I look up, and I was like, holy crap, I actually got the ball for once. And it was amazing. Just me, this little tiny kid, comes in and ends up getting this fumble recovery. It was by far one of the greatest memories of my life.
It's like a Rudy moment.
Right, yeah, exactly.
A very Rudy moment.
And then the week after, we go to play Bucyrus, I think. I think we went over to play Bucyrus, and Coach starts me at defensive tackle. So I'm the starting defensive tackle of the Galleon Tigers. Little tiny me. Little safety playing defense tackle, and I trot on out there feeling confident, like, yeah, I got a fumble recovery last game. What up? This is nothing. I'm going to swim move all these guys like it's nothing. So I jog on out there, and I get in my stance, get on my 3-point stance, and I look up. 7th grade. This kid has a full beard. Like, full. This kid must have been like a junior in high school or something. This dude's jacked. He has a full beard. I'm like, this isn't the same as last time. Like, this kid looks good. Kid absolutely wipes the floor with me in the entire first drive. After that first drive, coach was like, all right, Ty, you're out. Never got to play defensive tackle again. But that was a good game.
Yeah.
Yep. That's definitely my favorite personal sports memory.
That was a good story. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to bring it down to the not-so-fun side. Let's go with your worst professional sports moment. We exclude LeBron leaving the Cavs, but
exclude that. That's another tough one. There's several out there. Several Browns losses that really stick in my mind. There's definitely some Cavs losses. The championship last year was heartbreaking, but I think the one that sucks the most was the Dwayne Rudd helmet game?
Yeah, I was there.
Were you at that game?
I was at that. It was actually, I think it was my first ever Browns game I attended.
I remember being young and not really understanding what was going on, and my dad had to explain it to me, and it was just so heartbreaking. It's up there with Bottlegate. That also was one of the worst games I can remember, but definitely the Dwayne Rudd helmet game was probably my least favorite.
Yeah, the helmet game, that was tough. Like I said, it was my first Browns game I ever attended. My dad and his buddy had tickets, and they took me up there. And, we were sitting up in the nosebleeds, and I was all hyped because it was the first time I ever been to a Browns game anyways. And I was watching it, and I was like, sweet, we're getting a win. My first game here. We're walking out of the stadium a little early. Yeah. And, like I said, we were in the nosebleeds, so we get down to the lower main course or whatever, and we hear all the booing and everything, and so we stop where there's a little section where you can kind of see the field, and we're asking, like, what's going on? And so we had some random people explain it to us, and then I just remember seeing Kansas City line up for the field goal and kick it, and I was like, oh, man, what a bummer. Yeah. What a bummer. And, I mean, now that I look at it, I go, that's basically, like, was my first ever game, and it kind of set, like, my expectations, or at least what they should have been for the Browns moving forward, because that's basically been the story of the Browns.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so what's your worst personal sports moment? This is going to be good, I bet.
See, this one's hard because I think back to football, and our football team was not very good. We won one game in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So that all kind of just blurs together as being a bad time in my sporting life. But definitely one of my worst. Man, that's rough. I'm trying to think. All right, I got a funny one. It's not. I want to say it's my worst because I'm sure I've had more heartbreaking ones. But one of the worst experiences of my life was, again, I was playing t-ball, and I must have been kindergarten, maybe a little bit older, whatever age t-ball is. So I'm playing t-ball, and my dad's the coach. And this game, Dad puts me out center field, so I'm playing center field. I loved playing outfield back then because none of the kids hit it that far. So I didn't really
you could chase the butterflies and pick the dandelions.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm out at center field, and this kid bangs one right over my head. It was to my left. So as I'm looking at the plate, it's to my left, about 15 feet to my left, and right probably my head level, and then I have to go chase it and throw it back. So a couple innings later, I see this kid come up. I'm like, man, I'm going to that spot. So I move myself 15 feet over. Now I'm sitting there. I'm ready. I'm freaking ready. So I have my my glove ready, down by my knees. All of a sudden, he cranks this thing. And apparently, 6-year-olds don't have the best reaction time because that thing came up and popped me right in the cheekbone.
Oh.
Like, it hurt real bad. So I start bawling my eyes out. Dad has to come get me. He takes me to the sideline. I'm still there crying. We're playing short man because we don't have any bench players. So my dad's trying to get me to go back into the game. I'm just sitting there bawling, have everyone look at me. Oh, that was definitely rough.
I'm willing to say this might be your dad's worst personal sports moment as well.
Watching his son cry on the sideline because he got hit in the face by a t-ball. Yeah,
as he's coaching the team.
As he's the coach. Yeah, that's definitely got to be up there for him. So, but yeah, that's probably one of the worst. Just thinking back on it, it wasn't the worst at the time, but just realizing that situation was pretty bad. So that's probably definitely one of my worst.
That's awesome. A lot of good. This is fun. I like doing the question.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna be doing this more with future guests.
Right.
I like it, and maybe in a couple months we'll revisit with some different questions because it's fun to get to maybe show our personalities a little bit more and stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think that's about it for this week. Make sure you guys subscribe on iTunes and Podomatic. That helps us a lot. See if we're improving, see our viewership. We can look up some advanced stats on there, so that definitely helps us. Make sure you guys find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the handles are at BA Sports Podcast. Once again, we've kind of missed this past couple weeks, but we got to give a big shout-out to Mr. Producer, Eric, back there. Definitely keeping this thing together. I think we can say that for sure.
I mean, if you look at him right now, you can't really tell. He's all kind of kicked back and relaxed.
Yeah, right.
But we couldn't do it without him.
Every week we come up with some audio issues, and he's definitely the one to figure it out. So he's been a lifesaver for this thing, and we couldn't do it without him. So it's great. Make sure you guys check out the website at the BAobserver.com. That's theBAobserver.com. Check out at BA Food on Instagram for some cooking tips and some just all-around food advice run from our friend Brandon Trainer. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Later.